Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast. This is the Monday Mashup, the show we bring you each and every Monday on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio versions show are available, of course, through Spotify, Apple iTunes, or wherever you pick up audio versions of the show. Joining me tonight for the Monday Mashup, we have Darren, as always, the regular now at this stage. He's like clockwork, and also back with a bang after that yay or nay VAR episode. Mark, our resident referee. How we doing, Mark?
What's the story, lads? How are you?
Good, not a bother. All good.
I feel like I'm beside Ant and Deck tonight, lads.
Yeah, kind of are. I'm the Spotify side. I'm the Spotify side. He's the YouTube side. It's all good. You say you United fans, you seem very happy after yesterday, I have to say. Very upbeat now. Not the dour way you were previously. Let's run down quickly through the results. Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0. 2 goals, a goal from Saka and a lovely finish on Martinelli, I have to say. Don't know why that boy isn't getting picked before the others, to be honest. Palace 1, Aston Villa 2. Stevie G continuing to run a form there, with 2 wins out of 2. Liverpool obliterated Southampton 4-0, could have been 8. Norwich 0, Wolves 0, Brighton 0, Leeds 0. 2 managers under pressure at the moment. Hard to believe Graham Potter getting booed, lads, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. He has Brighton up in 9th and they're booing him. Just goes to show you. Little apples growing big trees. Brentford 1, Everton 0. Rafa in trouble as well, and hopefully we'll add to that on Wednesday. Burnley and Tottenham was postponed, doing us all a favour so we wouldn't have to endure it, but no, it was actually weather. Leicester 4, Watford 2. James Maddison back to his brilliant best, and Vardy with a brace. Excellent stuff there. Man City 2, West Ham 1. Man City in total control there. West Ham with a consolation with Lanzini. And then rounded out the weekend with the Super Sunday that kind of was super and kind of wasn't. A 1-1 draw, Chelsea and ManUtd. Lads, let's start with the game yesterday. We'll start with Chelsea and ManUtd. I'll take the Chelsea corner in the absence of our blue podfather from the Dynamo Podcast Network. Darren, you start first with the game. Thoughts?
I suppose from a United point of view, we've got to be happy enough with getting away with a point from Stamford Bridge, with the way we've been playing recently. I don't think we covered ourselves in glory, but I certainly thought, I saw a couple of little differences to what we've seen in previous weeks. It was a little more of a game plan and a solidity. I think it was very evident, they were trying to play on the counter-attack. And again, there was stages where we obviously played a little bit of a press game as well, he pressed and then he let them drop off, and then he pressed and then he let them drop off. And it was quite clever. Tactically, it was quite good, I think. You're not going to go to the Bridge and have all the possession and stuff like that with the way Chelsea play, And so why go into a battle that you probably can't really win? Really just try and be a bit smarter. And I think that's what Carrick did. I think leaving Ronaldo out was a great idea, to be honest with you. There was no way you could be going in there a man light, and that's basically what we've been when Ronaldo's played, albeit with, the addition of the goals he gives us. His work rate isn't what it needs to be to warrant a place in the team at the minute, and the way we're, having to fight for every single ball in every single game type thing. Do you know what I mean? So I was happy enough for that, I have to say. I thought Sancho took the goal very, very well. He gave the eyes a couple of times to Rashford as if I'm giving it to him, and give it to him. And as soon as Mendy took the step, he literally just rolled the ball past him. And we know Mendy's a big guy. He covers the goal really well. I just thought you could see it's a guy that's starting to come into a little bit of confidence now that he's had a couple of games, and obviously he got his first goal the other night and stuff like that. And I think he's going to be huge for us under Rangnick, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I like the way when he was running in, the way he kind of shimmied and dropped the shoulder a little bit, and he kind of put Mendy the wrong way and then slotted it home. So Mendy was already grounded.
He looked like Elvis, he did.
Yeah. Mark, thoughts on the game?
Yeah, same as Darren. It was obviously Chelsea dominated the first half, but we've seen glimpses of what we could do. There was a few mistakes, Wan-Bissaka at the start there. Wan-Bissaka and Lindelof, they were all over the place. But I thought first 15 or 20 minutes of the second half, we really came out and played, We've seen glimpses of what we're actually capable of, which we haven't seen over the last few weeks, bar possibly the Villarreal game. But yeah, no, listen, if you had said to me before the start of the game, take a point away against Chelsea, you would have snapped your hands off at it. But what really got me now, from a referee's point of view, it's a penalty. There is contact there with VAR. You're going to get a penalty now. Every player knows that. But Thiago Silva went down like he got shot in the foot, man. What was all that about?
That's good training. That's good coaching. God. That's where that comes from.
Oh man, but there's glimpses there. ManUtd, I thought had a decent game. I know Darren's a big fan of his, so
Listen, I have to be honest.
Yeah, have a good game though, didn't he?
He had a decent game. He did. Are you pointing at yourself there?
I called that in the preview, and I was shot.
We'll go through your results from the weekend with the preview. Weekend. You won't cover yourself in so much glory now.
And come here.
I did get that one right. Though. I did get that one right.
No, but Darren, I agree with you about Sancho. I think he'll start to see him come into his own now. That game against Villarreal really done his confidence wonders, especially scoring the goal. And yesterday he just looked like a totally different player than he did.
I think the game against Villarreal looked like Carrick had kind of said to him, "Listen, kid, you're going to play 90 minutes. Go and enjoy yourself." Exactly. And all of a sudden it took the monkey off his back, and he wasn't looking at the sideline going, "Am I coming? Am I coming?" You know what I mean? Yeah. And he had put in a good shift yesterday when he did eventually get brought off. Yeah. And I think it was to bring on the fresher legs to try and keep that press up high up the pitch.
Yeah, it's good to see him with the confidence. Like I said on here before. Like we talked about the Saka and Rashford who missed the penalties in the Euros, and everyone's giving them sympathy. No one was talking about Sancho, and he came in with no confidence at the start of the season. People were forgetting about that he was the third player that missed the penalty that time. In the final, that's going to play in your mind, and then you're not getting minutes. You're not starting games, so that affects your confidence as well. So he just needs to get minutes under his belt, and he will. He'll definitely get that now under the new manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about our friend from Cork, Roy Keane, who was like never out of controversy and nearly got into a punch-up yesterday in the studio. But a couple of points he raised. He spoke about Carrick after the game, making comments about being proud of the lads and this kind of stuff and all. And he was questioning the judgment there in terms of like, Ollie's only gone a week. Why weren't you proud then? What was going on? How come all of a sudden it's all rosy again a week later type of thing and all this kind of thing? So he was questioning Carrick, but he also questioned the dropping of Ronaldo, that you can't bring a player like Ronaldo and sign him and bring him into a team. He's not here to sit on a bench. Darren, what was your thinking? I know how you feel already about Roy Keane, but in terms of those comments, I mean, I thought Carragher was quite balanced, wasn't he, in what he said?
Yeah, listen, I think it's fair to say Carragher's probably the best football pundit in England at the minute, regardless of what team you support. He gives an educated view on what's going on at teams and at clubs, and his knowledge is really, really good, I have to say. I'm a big fan of his. And it was great to see him. Obviously, he had his own little trouble a couple of years ago. It was great for Sky to keep the faith in him, because I think obviously somebody saw something in him and went, we don't need to do this and get rid of him. Like we'll keep it rolling, and they're reaping the rewards now, aren't they? Really. But now, like, Keane's a clown. He's a pantomime villain for me. That's all he is. He's there to say stuff to rile people up. I don't believe he believes half of the stuff he says. I genuinely think he knows. He knows that he's saying things that's gonna get a reaction from people, and that's it's that off the cuff type of stuff that just infuriates people, like it's very evident. Whether you're Roy Keane, whether you're Niall Hogan, no matter who you are, if you can look at Ronaldo and you can say that he has at every minute of every game he's played at United brought something, you need to stop watching football, because he hasn't. That's just not what happened. We spoke about it. I said this recently. I think he should be used as impact. I think he needs to come in and start picking the bones of teams after 60, 65 minutes like he did yesterday, when United have put up a good fight against the team, got a foothold in the game, and gone out with a plan and with a set of tactics and stuck to it. And then you bring somebody off the bench like this who is absolutely clinical, and when he gets chances, he's going to pick holes in the team. And that's what Carrick did, and it was clever. It was really, really clever. and Keane, he just, I don't even know why we're wasting time talking about him, to be honest with you. He's that much of a toolbox, if I'm honest.
I think he knows whatever he says is going global. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think he acts up to that. He knows it's going to be, the minute he comes out of his mouth, it's on social media and it's out there for good. And I think he plays up to that a lot,
I think for a bloke who talks so much about, the likes of, they're on TikTok and they're on Twitter and blah, blah, he's definitely sifting through because he likes to see himself in the headlines. Absolutely he is,
Yeah. In terms of one of the things that was asked yesterday, Mark, you might want to take this one. The talk was that maybe Rangnick was the one who picked the team yesterday. That was the talk going around.
Yeah.
Well, and any buy into that, or do you reckon it was Carrick?
Well, listen, I think if you're coming into the United job today, you're going to be on the phone to Michael Carrick on Saturday evening when he's sitting in the Lowry Hotel in Manchester before the game, in London, before the game. You're going to be on the phone to him, telling him what to do. To me, that's what I think anyway. I don't think it was fully Carrick. Like, he was known he was getting the job today, he would have been on the phone telling him what to do. And if that was his plan about Ronaldo, I fair play to him,
Darren?
Yeah, I actually think it might have been the opposite way around. I think this might have been a tactical ploy from Carrick himself, who knows Rangnick is on the way in, who was probably now fearing for his position. So he's going into a big game like that against Chelsea, and he says to somebody, "Listen, anyone got a number I can get Ralph on? Want to have a chat to him about Sunday? Maybe take a few things on board. Maybe he can have a little bit of input." All of a sudden, Rangnick is coming in. He's thinking this kid's willing to learn. He's willing to adapt. Maybe what he does. It might be a very, very clever play by Michael Carrick to try and actually stay at Old Trafford. I personally believe Rangnick had input into the picking of the team yesterday.
Well, it would have been important as well. I mean, he wouldn't want to be starting the job today coming off the back of you guys getting smashed up 4 or 5-0 or something like that, and then try and pick his up for a very quick turnaround then against Arsenal later in the week and stuff like that. So I'd imagine he would have had a bit of input in it there, but it was kind of shot down. In terms of, let's talk about the appointment of Ralph Rangnick. I mean, Mark, you start with it. I mean, we know this is a guy, on the face of it, you look at his CV and you would think, that CV, and you look at United and you go, I'm not too sure. But then if you delve into his CV and you see the kind of work he did at these clubs and how he brought the likes of Leipzig to where they are today and stuff like that, which is a mammoth task, really. But it's, the kind of play he's going to play. He's the high press kind of guy. This is how he likes to play. High energy, moving all the time, running like crazy, huge amount of energy, high press. There's a lot of players at United at the moment. They're not going to fit into that game plan, are they?
Well, firstly, to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind about Leipzig and where they finished and all. It's a style that he's going to try to implement. That's what I'm excited to see. What he's done in the past with them, which has obviously brought on the likes of Salzburg, Red Bull Salzburg, with their connection and stuff like that. He's doesn't like sideways passes. Michael Carrick when he got into his team anyway. He doesn't like playing it back. He likes high pressing. That's what we need. And I think we have the players to do that. Absolutely. And I think, like we just talked about, we've seen glimpses against Chelsea of what we can actually do. There was talks of the lads that stopped running for Ole and stuff like that. And you could see that. You could see it in the body language. But to me, it's a positive. He wants 6 months and then he goes upstairs for 2 years. Fair play to John Murtagh for getting it over the line as well. He's only in there, less than a year now, isn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a positive. Hopefully now, you see the praise that you get from all the managers, Thomas Tuchel, Jurgen Klopp, everyone around Europe. Chelsea went for him last year, didn't get him, I think, after they sacked Frank Lampard. So I'm looking forward to seeing him coming in, and I think we'll get a win against Arsenal now in his first game on Thursday.
What about Darren in terms of personnel? I mean, he's coming in. We know he's coming in initially this 6 months or the rest of this season, let's say. And then he's going to move upstairs for 2 years. Depending on how it goes, he may not move upstairs. This goes really, really well. He may stay where he is. But it sounded like an appointment to put a structure in place while you wait and get, I won't say the right manager, because I'm not saying you just got the wrong one. Because he brings a lot of positives to the table. he certainly won't suffer fools gladly at United anyway. So the likes of Pogba and guys like that, they're going to get found out very quick. They're either going to bring it or they're going to get put right out the door, I'd say. But what you're thinking in terms of the personnel? I mean, is this so kind of like, it feels like it's a contradiction to the Ronaldo signing, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does, absolutely. But I think the issue there is, I think there's people at United now that realise, other than for, marketing reasons, Ronaldo probably wasn't the right signing in the summer. And as much as United fans, myself included, wanted to see him back at the club, he has gotten on. And I mean, he's in super, super shape. He's in unbelievable nick. We'd all, kick our granny up the hole to have that body. But he doesn't, he's not capable of putting in the kind of shift that we as a football team need. And that's somebody that Ralph Rangnick is gonna deploy in a team where he wants a high press. I think we could actually see us playing with a lot of false nines, if I'm honest, over the next little while. Because I don't think there's necessarily a striker that can be there week to week and do this job for us. Obviously you look at Cavani, he could possibly fit into it, but Cavani can't play game. This has been the issue with him since he's come to United. His injury record's been very poor, and then obviously there's the quarantine issues with coming back from the international football. But I mean, from a squad point of view, I think there's enough there for him to really, really, really get some joy out of the kind of system he wants to play. I think if we talk about yesterday, and if we talk about maybe him having something to do with it, if we even look at a very, very subtle change, did anyone else notice how high up the pitch Fred played? Right? And that does a couple of things, yeah? We know Fred, we've said weeks on weeks and weeks, I'm a fan of his, right? His work rate and his energy is absolutely phenomenal. This guy is going to flourish under Ralph Rangnick because he'll put him in a position where he's not going to hurt you defensively. And this is what we said about him being a Shakhtar, and when he kind of built that portfolio for teams to come looking at him, He was playing as a 10 and he was playing very high up the pitch. He was taking free kicks. He was very creative. Now at United, he's gone into that central or into that defensive midfield position, and you can see it doesn't suit him. You've got to be a really, really clever player to play that position. Let's look at Claude Mcgillie. Not necessarily the most gifted footballer in the world, but just so clever. You know what I mean? And you look at anyone that played that position very well. Again, you wouldn't necessarily say they were unbelievable footballers, but they knew how to play the position, and they were very, very mentally good and technical on the pitch. I see Fred probably being a big part of this going forward at United because of the energy. The likes of Sancho, Jesse Lingard, I think will play a lot. I think Rashford will play a lot. I think Greenwood will play a lot. I think those kind of 5 and Bruno maybe 6 will be our core of the front 4 positions. The kind of striking position, the two wide players, and the one in behind. I think you'll pick them from those 6 week to week, if I'm honest. I think McTominay, somebody had a word in McTominay's ear yesterday. He was absolutely superb for me, but he didn't get involved in this going box to box. Somebody obviously said, listen, kid, this is what I want you to do. I want you to sit and screen, and when we look like we're really, really struggling, I want you to get back inside and almost help out the 2 centre-backs, because we know he plays there for Scotland as well. So tactically, there was so many like wins for us tactically yesterday in seeing what players could do. Obviously taking Fred out of that position, getting him higher up the pitch, using that energy level to try and nick the ball back here and there, which he did quite a few times. And then obviously sitting McTominay in, because we know he's good defensively, and saying, listen, sit there, don't get involved in going past it. We don't want you to be Frank Lampard and try and score goals coming in late. That's not what you're here for, So I think yesterday was the start of something for United. And I think personnel-wise, I think he'll do what Klopp has done at Liverpool for me. And I say this about Liverpool all the time. Like, the gem there for me is always Klopp, and I've said it to you and I've said it here in the past. I wouldn't be worried if it was Liverpool if Salah walked out, because I think, to be honest, he'd find somebody else to fit into that system. And I think that's what Rangnick is going to do for United. He's going to find players around the club that he feels he can put into a position and get them to play that position and teach them to play that position. And that's the big thing that United have struggled with over the last few years. they've been buying footballers, you know, rather than teaching guys to play in positions and tactically to be, you know, more astute and stuff like that.
Well, there was a lack of a system as well, Mark, wasn't there? I mean, there was a lack of a structure and a system in order to tell you these are the players that you need, instead of going out and going, well, we heard this club wants him, so we're going to get him, and we heard this club wants him, so we're going to get him. But it's not whether we need them or not. It's we just need to buy these names because of branding and marketing and all this kind of thing. Now this guy's going to come in. He has a structure and a system and a tactic of play, and he's going to have to find those chess pieces to fit into that. So, Mark, where does that leave a Pogba? Or like we're hearing today that Pogba now might want to stay. I'm not sure whether that's a lack of offers in terms of where he'd want to go, or whether he's interested in playing for this man. But the likes of Pogba, Ronaldo, and say Maguire, where do they fit into this plan?
Well, I'll be hoping that Pogba doesn't, because I'm sick of this back and forth. Oh, he's leaving, he's not. You know, his agent's obviously in his ear saying, we'll see what happens here, but, you know, I have a deal ready for you now in January, but just say to keep everyone happy at bay, keep the new manager happy coming in. Because if he is looking for a move, he's going to have to play games. You know, no one's going to buy him, you know, if he's sitting on the bench. As for Ronaldo, it's just, listen, we know, like Darren said, we know what he can do. He's not the player he was. If he can, you're not going to get every game out of him. If you make an impact from the bench, happy days. But you'd like to think with the players around him, like the players that Darren just mentioned, the likes of Greenwood, Rashford, and I'd agree with you. I think Lingard is going to be in the team a lot more than he had been. Great to see Fred. I think Fred yesterday looked like the Fred that we seen playing in the Champions League for Shakhtar. You know, he was given that bit of freedom. He wasn't restricted to playing beside McTominay. So I think he needed that for his confidence. The only thing he probably done wrong was that chip. But if he doesn't take the shot on, people give out about him anyway. You know, that sort of way. He was there
to take it.
Yeah. Like if he didn't take it, you'd say he bottled it. You know, because the pass to me wasn't on. I think the two Chelsea defenders are getting back. To be honest with you, yeah, exactly. But as for Maguire, then I don't know. Like, I don't know where that leaves him. He needs to kick up the arse. That's all I know. To me, he actually looked more comfortable when the last two games, when he had Lindelof and Varane actually playing beside him, rather than it was just playing kind of forward at the back. So I don't know. I'd like to think he'll come back in. Hopefully, I don't know how Darren feels actually. Hopefully they stripped him of the captaincy, because he's not a United captain. Like, he won't do it though, but I'd love to see him do it, but he won't do it.
I actually don't know if he'll get a position in the starting 11 under Ranić, because I think the mobility will be a huge issue. You know, I think he likes his teams to play quite high and to play, you know, that press. You know, playing a high press with Harry Maguire, because if anything goes over the top and they get turned, you're absolutely stone dead. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Varane plus Lindelof or Boy, possibly even, you know, Varane and Boy, and say, do you know what, lads? We've got an awful lot of mobility here. We've got a lot of strength. We got two lads that can head the ball. They're athletic. If you two can stay fit, you two have a really good opportunity to maybe, you know, solidify yourself as our first choice centre back pairing there. And we know at times, under at times Boy has just looked phenomenal for United. The biggest issue has always been A, staying fit, you know, and B, cutting out those 2 or 3 out of 10s. But we has had games where you just thought, oh my God, that guy was immense. You know,
he can be quite rash. I love him, but he can be quite rash as well. Like what Ralph coming in, he'll see Boy as the more aggressive, where Varane is more up here. You know, that's the way he'll take that 2-step back on the forward, and he'll know what he's doing.
That's your Vidic and Ferdinand in a different mold. Listen, Eric, you go and win the headers. Rafa, you sit behind him, and anything he doesn't get, you just clean up and be really, really clever. And we know Varane's quite good with the ball at his feet as well. So it also gives you an option to start creating things from the back when you do have it there.
Yeah, it's kind of why I asked you about those 3 specific players, because we know you have to play a high line, which doesn't suit Maguire at all. we know when Pogba in there, he kind of goes missing and he kind of at times doesn't put in a shift, which will not appeal to that man at all. And then I know up front, if you're playing that three up front in that high press game, you need three guys with a certain mentality that know when to go and hold and press it and stuff like that in a way. So you can't, as you said, Darren, you can't have a passenger up front like Ronaldo.
No. Just on the Pogba one, like I could see possibly how he could fit in.
But we're gonna have to get the French Pogba, aren't we? Not the United Pogba.
Here's the thing, though. If we've said for quite a while, you know, that maybe tactically things weren't right at United, and that could be something that players, you know, can feel. Well, they're obviously feeling because they're in the dressing room, you know.
Yeah. Maybe
Pogba looks at something like Rania coming in, he's going, holy shit, we've actually got a coach here with a set of tactics. Because I'm sure he looks around the dressing room and he goes, we've got enough here. You know, like if you're Paul Pogba and you can have, you know, a Bruno and a Rashford and a Sancho and a Greenwood ahead of you. Like, you know, you've got artillery there. Do you know what I mean? But obviously you look behind you and you go, oh, what are we going to do here type thing. You've David De Gea, who again had another good game yesterday. But I mean, there's and actually, to be honest with you, I thought Tellez had a good game as well, I must say, at left back. Wan-Bissaka and Lindelof, that's where the issue was. You know, Wan-Bissaka dropped off 2 or 3 times, ball was back inside, we're in trouble. But like, I still really think that Pogba could look at what's there and think, you know what, with a good coach, we could be where I want to be. Because I do believe that there's a little bit of truth in the fact that he wants to be able to compete on the level, i.e. in the league, in the Champions League. I do believe that, you know, and I think if he thought he could possibly do it in England, I think he'd be up for staying.
Yeah. And I think, Darren, if he gets the best out of the team as well, it's one player we haven't mentioned there. I think he'll get the best out of Bruno, because Bruno, I don't think, has been at the races the last few months. Like, you know, I know we got the hat trick on the first day against Leeds, but that was a free game, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he does look devoid of confidence as well. I mean, this isn't the guy that was, you know, playing these free kicks over the top of Man City to get Martial on the end of stuff when he was 6, 8, 10 games into his United career, you know. This is a different guy completely. But again, I feel like he's been dragged down.
Yeah, that's
And when you watch the guy, he just looks like someone gives a hand here, will you?
He personally took a lot of the shit on his own shoulders, didn't he?
He did.
When you say it,
looks like he's carrying
like, even saying it at the Watford game there, the way he was saying it's our fault, not Ollie's and all this. He was the guy who walked over and stuff like that. So you can see it personally was affecting him. You know what I mean?
And I think that says a lot about the kind of person he is, which possibly leads us down the line of captaincy. Because if you're willing to put your hand up and say, do you know what, the issue is here, that's leadership in itself. Because there's too many people in this day and age that just want to say, well, actually, it wasn't my fault, it was your man over there. Or actually, it was, you know, I want to just...
Well, you know yourself, out of 11 players, he was the one who went over and gestured it, you know. He absolutely was the one who said it to the fans and stuff like that. So it just goes to show, you know. I mean, there was a lot of people... I know he didn't have a great game on the day either, but there was probably a handful of other players that were a hell of a lot worse than him, in fairness. Yeah. What about... Let's talk about Chelsea for a minute. What was your thinking on Chelsea yesterday? I look at Chelsea overall, and I would have been one who would have thought that they would have got a positive result yesterday against us. I think you were coming in very bad form. They were coming in electric form after smashing up Juve. You know, well, you can look into that whatever way you want, whether Juve and AC Milan and Real Madrid and Barcelona are the teams that they used to be. Maybe they're not, but you still have to go out and beat them. And going out and beating them the way that they beat them was very impressive. But the one thing I look at Chelsea is there too much creativity there and not enough finishing? Would that be a fair comment? And
well, I think if you had a fully fit Lukaku starting that game yesterday, it'd be a different scoreline at half time. Like.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think how, you know, the tactical genius Tuchel had Werner on the pitch for 82 minutes is beyond me. Like, really, whatever. Oh my God, he's so difficult to watch, because you can actually see what's going to happen before it happens, and you're like, this is playing out in front of me here. Like, why is this? You know, again, another guy who is devoid of confidence completely. You know, he never ever, and I know we talked about this on our WhatsApp yesterday. I actually thought when Ziyech got the ball, I was kind of like, oh, this guy could hurt us, you know, because he has that. Whereas I was kind of like, yes, Werner has it. Happy days. Yeah. We're all right here. We're safe, you know. And the longer he left him on, I thought, Jesus, this is going all right. If he keeps this going on for 90 minutes, we're in here.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's like it's not coming naturally for him. It's like he's trying too hard. It's like, remember, Robbie Keane was with Liverpool that time and everyone was willing him to score and it just wasn't happening. And it's because he was trying too hard. Yeah. He wasn't letting it happen naturally. He's not getting into the natural positions that he usually would, say, when he was back playing in Germany and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad to see.
Mane this season went through about 5 weeks of it. Remember, Darren, we spoke about it, where he was trying so hard and taking an extra touch and trying to push a ball too far and all that. And then he started banging the first time again and scoring goals, and the next thing he's back. You know what I mean?
You've got to be like, as a striker, you've got to be instinctive. And that's something, you know, obviously you can learn to be a better finisher, but you can't necessarily learn to be that kind of poacher and to be that kind of, you know, instinctive one-touch finish, boom. You just know where the goal is. Yeah. And like Werner doesn't look like that now. He looks like a guy that should play wide and likes to tuck in, you know. And it just seems like the confidence it's in his boots, really.
It's strange, isn't it, when you think about it, because he's surrounded by guys that are ultra confident at the moment and a team that's absolutely flying. And on top of that as well, when he goes off on international duty, he's putting in some great performances for Germany
and he doesn't seem to get the kick that the goal maybe for Germany, or the goal in if he plays in the Carabao, or the goal somewhere. When he gets the goal, it's not necessary. You know, when you see a striker and they have, you saw obviously Crouch at Liverpool at the time, you know, he couldn't get that first goal. He got something to go in. There was a deflection. They took it off him. He got the goal eventually. Then all of a sudden he looked like a footballer. You know, he's not getting that bounce of, I scored. The confidence is coming back to me. He looks like a guy that's doubting himself with every touch of the ball, you know.
I wonder at times, Mark, has he settled in London? Or does he not fancy it? Does he fancy Germany more? Like,
yeah, you wouldn't know. Like, and in fairness, you see all the lads with him, you know, they're willing him to do well. But that confidence thing, see that shot he took with his right foot. If he had scored 2 or 3 goals a week before, he's taking it on the left foot and he's, you know, volleying into the back of the net. That just shows how low in confidence he is. You know, players can be comfortable in different leagues and then they come to another league and it takes them a while to settle in. But he's been here long enough to you know, put a shift in and be scoring goals on a regular basis.
Yeah, his misses are they're frightening at times, aren't they? Because they're bad misses. They're not like he's not just missing.
I think he's still putting a shift in, but I just think, like, from a quality point of view, if you look at the area, the pitch he plays in, again, it's about that quality and what you can create, you know. Keep him in, like, you know, because he's working socks off. But, you know, just you're looking for goals from a guy that plays in that position, and he's just not going to get you the quantity you need at this stage, you know.
Yeah, I suppose some of the talk that was coming out, and I heard some of it from United fans as well, they were talking about Werner and what their concern was, and Chelsea fans as well. They were kind of saying that you're going to come up against good teams and you're going to come up like they came up against Liverpool, they drew 1-1. They came up against City and, you know, the scoreline from City didn't really tell the tale that day. It could have been more, in fairness. And when you come up against those really, really good teams, not dismissing their results against Juventus or anything like that, unless you have a goal scorer like that who's going to take those opportunities, you might end up with those few draws. You might end up dropping those points. And that could cost you at the end of the season, albeit that they're top of the league at the moment. But the likes of Man City, the likes of ourselves, when you get those opportunities, you take them, don't you? That's the difference.
There's probably, I think the only thing from a Chelsea or the Liverpool point of view is there's probably not enough of those big games for Liverpool to maybe close the gap. Because I think with the likes of the, you know, if you look from maybe 5 or 6 down, I think they'll steamroll things. You know, I think the likes of, as you said, you know, they dropped 2 points against us, 2 points against you, and 3 points against City, but they've only got to play us twice each. Whereas those other teams, Like they're going to get 6 at Newcastle. They're going to get 6 at Burnley. They're going to get 6, you know what I mean?
But they also dropped points to Burnley, and they created unbelievable amount of chances that day. And they
Burnley are
couldn't
one
see
of those
Burnley
teams,
off.
aren't they? They're awkward
Yeah.
to play against. Like they just try to stop you from playing. They don't even try to play their own.
And in the end, in that game, they were lucky because Vidra had a great chance right at the death to steal it as well.
Yeah.
So you know, you are going to come up against some dogged teams. They're going to sit in there and test your will. And I just don't know whether Werner's the guy who you want on the end of some of those balls, because some of the chances that he's missing is bread and butter stuff that any half-decent striker will bang them away, no problem.
I got to be honest, if I was in Chelsea's position, I'd possibly be looking for something that I could loan in January in the striking position to play just second fiddle to Lukaku. Or that when he was injured, or if he gets suspended, or anything like that, you've got a backup. You know, the false 9 is good, but I think it can be, and we've seen from City, because City are obviously the master of playing that. There are times when it just doesn't knit together, and you just think, oh, they could really do with a focal point in there, you know? And I don't know whether, a loan signing, somebody, I don't know, could you get a Cardi out of PSG?
Maybe, but loan. I mean, it's the message it sends then to Werner then, doesn't it?
I think, you see, I don't believe Werner's got a future there, personally, because I don't believe he's got, as we said, the goals. And in the position of the pitch he plays in, it's about goals and assists.
Yeah.
You can have all the performances, all of the work rate you want to a team, but unless you've got goals and assists, you don't get to play. I mean, the opposite can be said about Marcus Rashford. At times, the work rate's not there, but his statistics for goals and assists are quite good. So he keeps a spot, you know?
Yeah, if he was at Chelsea, he'd be banging them away. Absolutely banging them away.
And I think with Lukaku coming on there for the last few minutes, it kind of, in my head, I'm thinking he'll start against West Ham now on Saturday. Werner be dropped, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because if you look at Chelsea's stats all around the board, everywhere else, it's absolutely outstanding. It's just that stat there in that striker position, and namely him, is a concern, and it's not something that Roman or Tuchel would stick with too long, really, you know what I mean? Because you will, like, they score goals all over the park, you know what I mean? How many players this season haven't had a goal yet, you know what I mean? They've nearly all scored at this stage, bar the keeper. And that's probably only a matter of time. But I just think it's one of those. Well, what did you make of, like, I mean, Tuchel's comments after the game? It was they described it this morning as summoning his inner Jurgen Klopp, talking about Jorginho being blinded by the lights.
And listen, the manager's always going to go into the post-match interview and try to protect his player. So, but I don't think he believed what he was saying. You know, you're a professional footballer. You play under the lights all the time. It's not. It's like when Klopp was saying about the wind and all.
He was so frustrated, wasn't he, Tuchel, in the interview? Man. You could see the frustration in him. Like,
it's. Go on ahead, Mikey.
No, I was going to say his frustration, I think, started from the Ronaldo offside that wasn't given, that went on, and we got a corner out of it, and then he got booked. I think that's when he started to start, you know, getting so frustrated, and I think that came into the interview after then.
Yeah, we watched it here at home, you know, and he was obviously gesticulating on the sideline. He was really losing it. My missus was watching it. She was like, "My God, he's an angry man. He want to be careful. He's gonna have a heart attack or something like that." At this stage, he's down on the ground like this, and he's beating the thing, you know. And I'm just like wetting myself. I'm like, "Yeah, of course he is." But the big thing there was, I know obviously what you said, Mark, and you're 100% right. He's got to try and go out and protect the player. But there's a point when it becomes farcical, and at that stage, you're probably better off going, "Listen, he's taking a bad touch." You know, the problem is he's been punished because he was our last man. And just, you know,
and Darren, it goes back to Jorginho's looking at Lukaku's touches, because that was a pure Lukaku touch, that wasn't it?
Absolutely, man.
Going back to the imagine if we had a score from the corner. Imagine how mad Tuchel would have went, because VAR wouldn't have been able to pull it back, because it's the next phase of play. So he wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have loved to see that one.
Just imagine, what else did I want to discuss? Let's move on and have a quick chat about a couple of these managers, Darren, that are kind of on the fringe at the moment. Obviously, we've spoke about Bielsa at Leeds. We've spoke about, you know, Graham Potter at Brighton. Results aren't going his way, and essentially also Rafa Benitez at Everton. I don't think at this stage we've seen the end of the manager merry-go-round at this stage, have we?
No, absolutely not. I think Rafa's getting pretty close, if I'm honest. I really, really do. Obviously now that Ollie's not at the wheel anymore, I haven't looked at the betting, but I could only imagine that Rafa's pretty close to the top of that list to be the next one out the exit door, Like if you look around the league, most managers are able every game or two to get their side to do something. Obviously, Brentford have been having a tough time with recently, but they were able to do enough to get over the line against Everton. Everton are really, really poor going forward at the minute. And we said it obviously on the preview. We both felt that Brentford would get the better of this, based on the fact they would outscore Everton. I didn't necessarily see Brentford keeping a clean sheet because they're not really a clean sheet kind of team, especially without the boy David Raya, who's a serious goalkeeper, by the way. But they were solid to the back yesterday. Everton really struggled to create clear-cut chances. There's half chances and there's lads snatching and stuff, and there's having fellas with pop shots. But I mean, going forward, Everton are so poor at the minute, and they're kind of starting to remind me a bit of Benitez went through a stage with Newcastle where everything was built on the defence because they couldn't score goals, and Everton are starting to get to that stage now as well. Where everything's about like, can we make a draw? Can we keep it tight? Can we then go there's enough players there in that Everton team. We saw it early on in the season to be able to put some. Like I think we watched them against Burnley, wasn't it? Was it early in the season? They were 1-0 down against Burnley. In the second half, they were just like it was like watching Brazil at one stage.
The Murray Gray linking up a Calvert-Lewin and all, yeah.
Right, and now all of a sudden you're looking at like obviously Calvert-Lewin's injured. He's been injured for a few weeks. Richarlison got himself sent off. He's out of action. Iwobi hasn't really found his feet since he's gone in from Arsenal. Again, shifts okay, but assists and goals nowhere near where it needs to be. The Murray Gray's gone off the boil. He's out of the team now. Like it's tough at Everton at the minute.
And it's that coupled with the fact that the likes of Godfrey, Michael Keane, Seamus Coleman, and Digne, who are normally rock solid at the back, aren't playing the way we would expect them to play. They're a bit slack as well, in fairness.
Lads, what do you say? I thought they were unlucky not to got a penalty yesterday. Rondon nearly got a shirt and reefed off him. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
I thought that was a penalty myself, but you're right. Iwobi had a great chance. It was like a back pass to the Brentford keeper. Then he should be putting his foot right through that into the top corner. Like.
That's the problem, isn't it, Mark? As well, when you're on a run like that as well, you just don't get those decisions. That's the problem, So I'd be concerned. I mean, obviously they have us in the Merseyside derby on Wednesday night. I would expect Liverpool to go out and do a professional job on them, but again, you never know in a derby. But like man for man matching up, we're so much at a different level to those guys. So if we've any intentions,
is this the time though in a derby like that he can possibly get a reaction from them? It's I would say it's slim. They've slim hopes, but
still possibly.
I think it's just a time when it could be a big turnaround for them if they got something, i.e. a win or even a draw to kind of galvanise themselves and say, right, we picked up something, we've changed the tide and the direction that this was going in. So that could be the big selling point for Benitez on Wednesday night,
Definitely, because he definitely needs, even if a draw, we'll still give him an extra few weeks in the job then,
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about, let's move on to Leeds. There was a lot of talk coming out this week that if things start to go really south or more south, if you like, for Bielsa, that he wouldn't be the kind of guy that'd hang around. If he felt that he had done what he could do, he'd walk away. What you thinking on that, Mark? I mean, he's getting close now as well, isn't he?
Yeah, they're just so unpredictable, We've talked last season and this season at the start, we compliment our attacking style, but at the back, they're just all over the place. But this season, I think what they've been missing, Patrick Bamford hasn't been on form at all, and we haven't seen it. I know he was injured there for a while at the start, but he hasn't really gotten back into it. I know
he's been injured.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. They're missing his goals there. You know, they don't have a replacement to score the goals that he scored last season, and that's what I think it comes down to. You know, they do have quality players. There's no doubt about it, but they just don't. Your man Rafinha is absolutely brilliant. Calvin Phillips had a good Euros. He hasn't really done much this season, so. Yeah, for me, Bielsa, there's only so much far your name's going to take you. Everyone respects him as a coach and stuff, but I think he could be in trouble over the next few weeks, to be honest.
Darren, you've mentioned the central defenders a number of times, the boy Cooper and all.
Yeah, I thought they were lucky to get out of Brighton, to be honest with you. I think Brighton had a 20-odd shots, you know, and if you look at some of the chances that they missed, like Maupay should have a hat-trick. Like he really, really should. And they should have been put to the sword. They were very, very lucky to get out of here with a 0-0 draw. I know in the last couple of minutes, obviously the boy Robert Sanchez makes a couple of good saves from Tyler Roberts and stuff like that. But I think that was as much from Leeds going, do you know what? We've been not very good, been battered for most of the day, and we can nick this here and they just applied enough pressure in the last 15 minutes to go, do you know what, lads, we're in a game here. But I think the big problem with Leeds is, and we said it before, the squad is threadbare. You know, it really your central striker, who's Patrick Bamford, right? And he's probably not going to be first choice at many other Premier League teams. Plus, you have the fact then that their backup is the boy Rodrigo, who hasn't settled at all, and to get a game most of the time has to drop into a 10 or a deeper role. They're so short on goals, it's scary. Rafinha's obviously popped up with a few goals for them, but again, he's gone back and forth to Brazil. He's had a couple of injuries, and it's very difficult when you're playing for a team like that and you're the only guy that's really a danger man. Because what happens is teams will double up on you. Teams will double up. You know, you'll get the fullback and the centre back or one of the centre midfielders dropping in and going, "We do a number on this bloke and we keep him quiet, and we'll win a game." And they know that. Because like James isn't going to hurt teams. The boy Joe Gerhardt, he obviously, he played against Spurs. He looked decent in his defence, but he's a kid that they bought for £1 million from Wigan. Do you know what I mean? But he's not going to really cut it right away in the Premier League. That squad was always threadbare for me, I have to say. Central defence, central midfield, and up front, sort of spine. And we talk about, you know, teams building through the middle like that. I think Leeds really need to step into this market in January, or they're looking at the drop, if I'm honest.
That's what West Ham done at the start of the season. They built the spine, and that's what you're right, spot on. Leeds needed to do it, and they didn't do it at all, you know. Yeah. And, yes. And like you look at them, if they went on an FA Cup run or something like that, they're effective in the Premier League then as well, because they've absolutely no one to choose from, like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Graham Potter for a second. I mean, he's a guy we revere on this show. I mean, we think he's a fantastic coach. But they were booed yesterday by the Brighton fans, but I loved his reaction and his comments after post-game, where he turned around and he said maybe some of these fans need to get a history lesson. And I thought that was a great answer, really, from a guy who was like, tactically, he's so tuned in and stuff like that. Darren, what you thinking on it?
Yeah, I actually loved it, to be honest with you. You know, he's got lots of confidence in his own ability, Potter, hasn't he? Without necessarily, you know, shouting about it. Like, could you really blame Potter for his boys missing 20-odd chances? I don't think you can. And I don't think he could have put his team in a better position to win a game of football than to have them create that many chances and to have that system he played. You know, we know he picks a good team. We know they play a good style of football. For me, again, I'll go back to to listen to Jamie Redknapp after the game on Sky, you know, and he spoke about, you know, this is where the striker maybe needs to do a bit more themselves. You know, he said he'd watch Robbie Fowler, obviously, when he was at Liverpool. He said he wouldn't score 1 week, he says, and he'd stay half an hour, 45 minutes every day after training with a bag of balls, and he'd just start those one-touch finishes, making things, you know, really, really sharp, just boom, banging the ball away.
Get the rhythm back.
Guarantee you, he said the next Saturday he'd get on the score sheet, you know. But obviously when Potter blows this whistle at 3:00 on a Wednesday, the boys are going home in the cars and they're just chilling out the rest of the day or whatever they're doing. There's no hunger there to want to go and better themselves, maybe. Because they've got good players, like they've got the boy Maupay, they've got Leandro Trossard, Jacob Moura. Like there was so many chances in this game.
Yeah.
You know, the width that the two boys, two fullbacks, Cucurella and Tariq Lamptey, are unbelievable. Like absolutely unbelievable. They got to be worth 70 to 80 million between the pair at this stage, you know, because they obviously paid big money for Cucurella. And obviously you've got the English Lamptey on the other side. So again, that transfer fee is massive. They'll go to two big teams the next couple of years, I'd imagine.
And like as for Brighton fans, we're probably going into that game saying, right, the results we had this season and what Leeds have had, we're probably going to win 2 or 3-0. And don't forget, like Brighton's highest ever finish in the Premier League was 15th, and that was under Graham Potter. You know, they're 9th. They're only realistically they're 5 points outside the top 4, so I don't think they've anything to be doing.
No.
Yeah, I suppose it was probably an element of frustration to create that amount of chances and not see it home. And I kind of, in some respects, I kind of get that. But I liked the way Potter's approach was, because he was kind of nearly indirectly, he was nearly saying, you know, I'm here at Brighton because I want to be, but I don't have to be. I could be in lots of other places if I wanted. You know what I mean? Yeah. And certainly a man who, if he became available, would have plenty of other opportunities and potentially maybe better opportunities in the footballing world, you know? So I just like the way he was being interviewed, because he wouldn't have really thought of that. So he's obviously sharp as a button, you know what I mean? So that would have been one that he would have got on the fly, really, you know what I mean? Because they probably weren't expecting him to. He probably wasn't being expected to be sort of like cornered that way a little bit, if you like. And I just like the way he came out with that, like, those fans need a bit of a history lesson, you know what I mean? So it was kind of really, really cool. I think he's a fantastic coach. And I think if you're a Brighton fan and you're booing your team, I get your frustration on not putting a goal away with 20 odd chances or whatever it is. But to be 9th in the Premier League, and as Mark said, 5 points off wherever, and you're Brighton, you should be absolutely delighted.
You see, I think that's the problem with football fans. You know, they obviously didn't look at the table when they built. They didn't say we're in 9th. They just looked and saw this was an opportunity for us to beat Leeds. Yeah. And we created enough chances to win 2 games of football, and we didn't take them. And obviously at the time, the booing. I don't get the booing thing myself, to be honest with you. I don't get the booing thing no matter what team you're involved with. Like, you're booing your own team, you're booing your own manager. Like, you didn't have a look at yourself, you know?
Yeah, I suppose the other thing that was spilling over as well is they haven't had a win in 6, isn't it, or something like that? But they've come up against decent teams as well. Like,
they're the absolute draw specialists. Nobody's had more draws than Brighton since they've been back in the league. You know, so that says a lot, really. But listen, he's making them hard to beat. They're competitive week to week. They're not going out like we've seen with the likes of Norwich to just be rolled over week on week. They're in games of football, be it against United, be it against Liverpool, be it against, the better sides or the weaker side. They're always in the game, you know.
And if they always play the same way.
Yeah, if they're poor finishing,
you kind of look at their result on a Saturday, don't you? And like, you rarely see them getting steamrolled. And if you do see them getting steamrolled, it's kind of a shock, regardless of who they're playing. I mean, even when you see Brighton playing the likes of us or United or City or whatever, they always give a great account of themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And you look at the flip side, I know, 20 shots and whatever, but it was a point at home and a clean sheet. So, you can't really complain too much.
Yeah, I suppose, as Darren said, they looked at Leeds and they were thinking this would be a training exercise, just go out there and do it. And for large portions of the game, it really was. They just didn't have that final product. That was it, really.
And that's not Potter's fault. He's not on the pitch. It's the lads that are out there,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Just finish with one last one. Steven Gerrard started at Aston Villa. I think it's been very positive. You can see he's in there. He's up for his coach. He looks like he's enjoying it. He seems refreshed by being back in the Premier League, doesn't he? And coaching in the Premier League. He seems like he's really up for
it. It's probably a really, really nice change for him. The expectation at Villa will be high, but not as high as it was at Rangers. Anything but winning at Rangers was a massive failure, a game to game. Whereas at Villa, if you look at Villa being a 6th to 8th place team in the league, every second or third game, you probably expect to lose a game, and even then he knows he's still testing themselves against decent sides and good coaches where he can further, his career as a manager, as opposed to being in Scotland where there's a lot of games, probably as a coach, you're not very, very challenged because your squad is, so much better than your opposition. And it's only about showing up week to week at times to get the job done, rather than you going out and having to say, do you know what, this week I get to test myself against Antonio Conte, against Thomas Tuchel, against Pep Guardiola. That's got to be Michael Carrick. That's got to be, it's got to be great for a manager who's still in his infancy in his career. You know what I mean? And to get to measure yourself against those guys would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be interesting to see when he go back to Rangers to get Morales or someone in now in January as well. Give a few boys an opportunity in the Premier League.
I don't think he goes near Morales.
No. I'm just saying, like, for instance, but he's a handful. Like,
I'll tell you who he will go for. He'll go looking to get Ryan Kent out of there.
Yeah.
110%. He'll go looking to get Kent out, and he'll play Kent on the opposite side to Bailey, and he'll have two guys that are really, really right at it with lots of ability, lots of pace, and who create chances for the Ings and the Watkins who swap that number 9 position.
Well, he's kind of now, because he's in the Premier League with Aston Villa, I don't think we're going to be as givish to him in terms of loanees and stuff like that now. We'll be a little bit more guarded, I would imagine.
I think we've already asked for Axel back in January, haven't we?
Probably, I'd say, yeah. Absolutely. Well, listen, lads, it's been a pleasure having you on. We're about to enter the Ralph Rangnick era. Michael Carrick up there is one of the most successful Man United managers, along with Ryan Giggs, in terms of win rate and stuff like that.
You can't say fairer than that.
But it'll be interesting to see over the next few months how things pan out there, and will it have the effect that it needs. We got some great midweek fixtures coming up as well, so it's great when we get these midweek fixtures as well, and the build up all the way to Christmas, so it's going to be electric. As always, a pleasure. This has been your Monday mashup on the Dynamo Podcast Network, brought to you by the Upper Tier, Spotify for audio versions of the show. You know what to do. Give it a like, share, subscribe, spread the word. We're here day in, day out, delivering great content. Talk to you again real soon, man. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.